My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California.
It is Friday, March 14th, 2025, and it's 12:46 a.m. where the elderly are wide awake, gang stalking on behalf of the government. And this is, again, relevant to the terms in prison and mental asylums where such obsessive and mentally disturbing and demented criminal conduct for no legitimate purpose remains underway. The demon in unit number 55, which you'll see reflected as I'm pointing to the ceiling, that's where the amplified noise of the ceiling cracking, the walls cracking. This amplified audible activity amongst what is engineered light and possible light activity. This is the specific environment, in other words, that's happening inside of an apartment with simultaneity to what I'm doing in the kitchen. Okay, so at the same time that I begin stretching, standing in the kitchen, just looking in the cabinet for something to snack on, minding my business, with simultaneity to that new movement, the demon that is in unit number 55, who was stalking with the demon inside of this unit, that is Tracy Banks, who was also not asleep, who was also obsessively monitoring me with all her demon-possessed gang stalking neighbors who continuously incriminate each other and the state, because they are not just gang stalking as a bunch of over-the-hill demons for funsies. They're gang stalking as an ongoing criminal pattern of conduct by the state. All right. And that's how you have the P.O.C. at this senior citizen complex. The entity is doing so as I begin stretching in the kitchen while I'm standing in front of the cabinets. And that's where the amplified noise is occurring. And that's also the timing that the amplified noise occurs. And it's pursuant to the same P.O.C. when you're looking at the videos of the fake sun that is setting in alignment to me. This same apartment where the fake sun is rising in alignment to me. The same conduct, which again is underway in the middle of the night. This is criminal interference with quiet enjoyment for the prosecution of the entity that is profiting from federal group stalking and monitoring, which is committed in order to murder and kidnap, criminally defame, steal from the target individual, that is myself. And also while the entity is being simultaneously prosecuted in my situation. So this is, again, the demons in units 33 through 64 are all going to prison and mental asylums. The entire venue has 144 units full of defendants who are engaged in gang stalking by residents at the venue. And they're gang stalking with the population that is criminally cooperating with the residents to maintain criminal surveillance and harassment and psychological torture efforts. It is underway inside of the units 33 through 64 who share in that criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, keeping me under surveillance while I move in the kitchen, while I move around to the living room. As I fall asleep, wake up, the demons are obsessively stalking together. They don't sleep. With regard to keeping me under heavy surveillance. These are demons that have that energy, that have that obsession, that have that desire and focus. This is the demon possessed. These are not normal people. So anyway, this is criminal conduct I want to document. AVANATH Capital Management is gang stalking me as a corrupt company at 12:46 in the morning, is still criminally monitoring evidence against it while I am prosecuting that third party company, while its criminal co-defendant is gang stalking in the unit above me in unit 55, license 5WUB 715. The company itself and the gang stalkers residing at the venue they are co-defendants together. They are the same entity. They are the people of the state. And AVANATH shall be criminally and civilly prosecuted for what its demon-possessed residents are engaging in with it, while AVANATH profits from it. And this is the pattern of conduct that the state is engaging in reliance on that population, who is going to be divided in federal court while their interests are competing with one another, and also with regard to the criminal engagement on behalf of a government government that's also being prosecuted for gang stalking me with a population. All right. The entity is doing so in concert with Tracy Banks. Again, her license is 9HUZ740. This is the demon that is gang stalking me by residing in the unit where I remain, threatening my life in doing so, and also seeking to obstruct justice. And this is a demon, all of them. But I want to be clear, they're going to be in federal court, and they will not want to hear what is sentencing regarding the enhancement to what is federal prison and mental asylums, which is inevitable. It's mandated for them in particular, and with regard to the evidence that's going to add to their terms in prison and mental asylums based on the ongoing interference with the federal case against each and every single last one of them. And also the enhancement to damages, the ongoing damages that AVANATH shall be subject to for its obstruction of justice while I am documenting and prosecuting a company that is continuously keeping me under surveillance, gang stalking me through the population that is using its property to do so. That's how you're going to prosecute the people who provide criminal means of facilitating this system. It is 12:51 a.m. where the demon is pacing inside of the unit. This is the elderly that are gang stalking, walking around inside of an apartment that causes earthquakes, that causes crackling ceilings and walls. No, it does not. It's called amplification. And they're going to prison for gang stalking. And it is speaking to what is exceptionally pathetic when you are over 55 with no job. And at this point in life, you're being prosecuted for what is exceedingly violent sexual violation of another while you're stalking them. And this is inexplicable conduct that no person is going to want to fess up to, and they don't have to because the evidence speaks for themselves. They will be silent in federal court. But they're being very loud right now. That's what I'm going to document. It's criminal interference with quiet enjoyment. It's monitoring while I'm doing nothing other than stretching. Again, everything that I'm doing is at the attention of the demon possessed who are obsessed with me. They're obsessed with my genitalia. They're obsessed with the moment that I fall asleep. They're obsessed with what I eat. They're obsessed with how I blink my eyes. They're obsessed with my breathing patterns. They're obsessed with when I reach down to scratch my toe. They're obsessed with everything about me, including how I describe their obsession with me. Okay, this is speaking to the amplified noise that's happening where I'm positioned in the kitchen with simultaneity to my stretching. And this is in the engineer light. This is where the fake sun rises and sets. This is where the government is gang stalking directly and doing it vicariously through the demons that are residing. And they are doing so with impunity. That is, they are willing to go to prison, and they're willing to go to prison for the rest of their lives at this advanced age while they're still gang stalking as of March 14, 2025 at what is 12:52 in the morning. All right, this is the ongoing sex offense that I'm subject to while I'm in an apartment where a government's keeping an American citizen under surveillance, and there is no lawful basis to do so. There is no probable cause. There's no crime committed. There is no lawful investigation, I want to be clear, by the federal government or the state government. So the entity that is, again, engaging in what is examining me as though any demon, any corrupt government actor has any probable cause, that is on its face already cleared. It doesn't take this prolonged amount of time for the federal government to determine that there is no crime that I've ever committed that would substantiate what the state is doing. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, because the enduring engagement in federal group stalking monitoring by the state while the federal government is sitting around watching it, the federal government becomes a part of the crime. So you're just talking about on a moral basis, from a moral standpoint, at what point do you become the problem when you are not providing justice? And why should any American citizen be denied justice promptly? Okay, I've already gone to the extent of literally doing what the federal government should have done, but they never would have done. If the federal government was not given information and evidence that it cannot deny, the federal government would have prosecuted me and criminally defamed me. And also has engaged in that, denying justice. And so that is added to the delay in justice that I have suffered and endured. And that is relevant to the ways in which the entity will be prosecuted as well. Every gang stalking police officer, everybody engaged in kidnapping, everyone engaged in participating in criminal summoning, everyone participating in criminal defamation, every federal officer or a federal agency that's engaged in facilitating federal group stalking and monitoring through any means of incompetence or dereliction of duty, the entity is responsible for that which American citizens have a right to not be subject to. So it's public corruption upon incompetence. Okay, so I just want to make sure that that's clear as well. It is currently, again, 12:54 a.m. on March 14, 2025. AVANATH Capital Management is engaged in domestic terrorism, is engaged in what is psychological torture amongst an occupant on its grounds, and this is on an unprecedented basis to prosecute that third party. And its residents are going to prison in units 33 through 64, and its employees at Woodside, Linda Reyes and every other employee at Woodside Senior Apartments are going to prison. It's 12:54 a.m. This is P.O.C. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes, and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state. And it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. That's amplification of gang stalkers who are engaged in a sex offense of monitoring a woman in an apartment. All right, this is what you will physically see are demon-possessed people who are stalking amongst impossible light activity that's streaming from the floor on the east living room wall, where it remains all day long, across the ceiling, having nothing to do with sunlight. And it's also not coming through the blinds, from the top of the blinds to the side of the blinds. This is the placement of engineered light for the amplification of all manner of audible activity by gang stalkers going by RGS, the Latino males that are gang stalking with impunity and engaging in what is criminal acts of retaliation and intimidation, demonstrating impunity and engaging in that sex offense. And the audible activity is so pervasive that while I'm listening to content on my headphones, it's that loud. Pay attention to when it starts doing this activity, when the demons know that I'm getting up. This is one of the creation. They're going to prison. They're trying to hide their faces. They're going to federal prison. And these are the types that are going to be deported. And they are starting this activity with simultaneity to opening the blinds. This is what Tracy Banks did in the kitchen, turning on the faucet as I open up the blinds. It's called stalking with activity at the venue where the fake sun rises and sets. This is while impossible light activity that you see inside of this apartment on what's a cloudy day has nothing to do with the engineered light that's on this living room wall and on the ceiling. These Latino males are going to prison. And these are the likes. If they're not natural born citizens, they're going to be deported. Their wives, their girlfriends, their baby mamas, anybody that's not a natural born citizen are going to be deported. This is not going to be heard through the headphones, the content that I'm listening to on the inside of the apartment, disrupting sleep. They're also doing so with simultaneity to what they know I am observing inside of the apartment. This is demon possession. It's also a sex offense, monitoring. All right, this is RGS, the company, and RGS's employees who are going to be civilly and criminally prosecuted. RGS is going to be prosecuted for what's ongoing impunity. And AVANATH Capital Management, Linda Reyes is going to prison. The employees are going to federal prison. This is facilitation of federal group stalking monitoring, which the city of Ontario, is facilitating this sort of violence, which is gang stalking. They're monitoring. Doing the same thing that caught today has nothing to do with this impossible light activity. This is monitoring. All right, and they're doing so while in the depths of the apartment, while I'm listening to content. The television is on, it's competing, it's so loud and pervasive that it's being heard through the headphones. That's impossible audible activity. It's while on a cloudy day, impossible light activity still piercing through a peephole. This is gang stalking. That's not going to be heard through the headphones. It's amplification. They're going to prison. Laughing is audible activity. They're going to be deported. Those are sex offenders because they're also monitoring my genitalia on behalf of the government and with the whole property that's living to engage in the pattern of conduct. All right, this is RGS that is gang stalking and doing so. Why? This is a demon that's meeting in the parking lot over here. It's an African male crossing path. The entity is doing so while you're documenting the P.O.C. All right, that's RGS crossing path. And this third party that's stalking in the path, 9RXF302. Title 18, music on the phone, audible activity. RGS is 41973W3, and they're gang stalking with those that are residing at the venue where the fake sun rises and sets, not over this building, not over this building, but over me at the building where I'm at the property, where it's rising on above units 33 through 48. And this is a demon-possessed person that's stalking in the path. This is Satan. Satan will use gospel music when he's in services, in service of engaging in the elements of monitoring. They're all losing their housing under the Violence Against Women Act, all of them. All right, and this is what the City of Ontario is facilitating. And RGS is on the grounds gang stalking with the demons that reside at the unit. 9RXF302 is stalking under the Violence Against Women Act. RGS is gang stalking with the demons that reside at the unit. This is pacing, and the amplified hammering is heard as audible activity amongst the engineer light, where you also know that they're gang stalking under the fake sun at 7:26 in the morning, at 1:33 in the afternoon, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when the entity is keeping a fake sun over me, and they're pacing and stalking with the Ontario Police Department and the population that's pacing around. This is pacing. This is stalking by a population. All right, and covering up the fake sun that's remaining over Alvarado Gardens day and night. Excuse me, not day and night, for the duration of the day, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, and stalking day and night, in other words, in that specific environment, is what RGS is doing. And laughing, ha 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 ha, that's called impunity, and it's audible activity. And these sex offenders are going to prison. And if they're not natural born, they're going to be deported. These are enemies of the way that the laws are structured in this country. And they're not welcome here. All right, they're not welcome while they're engaging in what is terrorism on behalf of the state. This is, again, relevant positioning, audible activity, and light activities inside. There is no position of any cloudy day that's creating the engineered light that's on the backside of this door and on the ceiling. They're stalking in the path, and they're also stalking with noise. And the population that is aiding in that. This is harassment by RGS. This is impunity by RGS, and the employees of RGS are going to federal prison. Their license plate is speaking to a means of identification. They're going to be, their identities are going to be produced, okay? This is the entity that is stalking with what has nothing to do with sunlight that's appearing on the living room wall on the inside. And that noise is called audible activity. This is the City of Ontario that's gang stalking, and commercial actors like RGS are engaging in that. Okay, this is called stalking in the path, as opposed to actually being focused on landscaping. You don't have a constitutional right to engage in this while you're profiting off of what is criminal conduct in furtherance of murder and kidnapping. And those, again, that are not natural born citizens, you happily deport them, happily. Okay, this is demon possession, though. This is mental illness. That's P.O.C. That's audible activity, monitoring evidence as well. RGS and AVANATH Capital Management are going to be prosecuted for it, because this isn't lawful conduct. And it's the means of engaging in the elements of monitoring. It's also mental illness. All right, it is, again, 12:01 p.m. And these are demons that are focused on me, on what I'm doing on the inside. And outwardly, you're looking at them physically engage in what's supposed to be their focus, which is hammering in the dirt. Just imagine the fake sun being right over them, the supernatural occurrence. You already know it's supernatural, because engineer light is on the ceiling and on the wall, on the east living room wall where it sits all day long, while they're creating audible activity. P.O.C. This is 12:01 p.m. All right, that band of demons, they're going to prison. RGS is engaged in the pattern of conduct on an ongoing basis with the city of Ontario, where the fake sun is liable to burst out shining at any point in the day. As you see it setting in alignment to me at 5 p.m., as you see it rising over the same apartment building at 7:26 in the morning, this is where an entity is stalking with light. The hammering is audible activity. This is accomplishing monitoring inside of an apartment, which is a sex offense. The company RGS is also stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act, and doing so with the entity, the public entity itself, and the public entity includes those that reside at the unit. That's why units 33 through 64 are going to prison, while the same elements of monitoring remain satisfied by virtue of the population coming onto the grounds and sharing in that harassment and terrorism and sexual violence as an entity gang stalking together. The African male playing Kirk Franklin, audible activity, stalking in the path with knowledge of what I'm doing as I'm doing. And what am I doing? I'm walking toward the parking lot. The traffic on G Street, they're pacing. This is a demon that was an operation of his communication device with means of monitoring, and the entity is doing so while following as I'm also inside of the apartment. That's what they're doing while I'm outside, okay? This is, again, P.O.C. and engineered light. And it's called conspicuous stalking. This is conspicuous stalking by RGS, and AVANATH Capital Management is facilitating. This is P.O.C. It is March 14th, 2025. It's currently 12:25 p.m. You just listened to the audio version of the video evidence that I captured for evidentiary purposes, capturing what, first of all, group stalking looks like. The specific environment is the preeminent indicator regarding the specific environment that is always present. And what you are witnessing is, as I am exposing the demon-possessed and the demon-possessed behavioral patterns, even on what is a cloudy day, which you are now aware is not the operation of a natural environment. This is a specific environment that surrounds me, which defies nature and is literally engaged in real-time alteration based on whatever it is that I might be doing or revealing about it and about the stalkers around me in it. So the cloudy day that is outside amongst gang stalking that is conspicuously underway, which is documentation of impunity of those who are going to prison, and impunity of those who are going to mental asylums, and impunity of those who are going to be prosecuted in civil court for damages. That's what that is, while conspicuous stalking is documented on yet another day. The same exact elements of monitoring and the same exact specific environment is what you will see if you view the video. Go to the website for the P.O.C. It is thisisthepoc.wordpress.com, where this video evidence, all the evidence, is going to be published for today, March 14, 2025. And also on the YouTube channel for the pattern of conduct, and it is called the P.O.C. In this video that I captured at 11:53 a.m. and the video concludes at 10:03 p.m. That means the video is 10 minutes long. You will see relevant positioning, that is stalkers who must be in the path, and they are creating a method of audible activity, and the method of audible activity, which is criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment while unlawful presence on behalf of the government, that is engaging in stalking and surveillance through demonic methods. This is malicious, as you are looking at the outward appearance of what is supposed to appear lawful and appropriate, which is landscaping. It is at a facilitating venue, not a private residence. And it is presumably amongst what is contracts that exist between AVANATH Capital Management and RGS Landscaping. This is all used in federal court for admissions. These are admissions to criminal presence, admissions to activity creation on behalf of the government that has an entirely unlawful program of federal group stalking and monitoring, which is psychological torture and ongoing stalking by the population that does so through commercial means. And it is also evidence of what is impunity by those commercial actors and by each defendant who is going to federal prison for engaging in federal group stalking and monitoring in furtherance of murder and psychological torture. The entity is doing so while they are engaged in federal stalking on the venue of the internet, meaning they are not only targeting me, they are aware of the fact that they're being documented while practicing what they want to be appeared as innocent and unsuspicious, but that's that is a delusion of the mentally ill. They already know that, first of all, that they are being documented, and that's not because they're looking at me holding a camera while I walk past them. And it's not because I am holding a phone, which again, they're doing the same thing. So in their malicious engagement in federal group stalking and monitoring with communication devices, whether you see them or not, they are outwardly demonstrating, outwardly trying to demonstrate themselves or represent themselves as engaging in what is obviously unlawful, because they're doing it right in your face. They're doing it where they're engaging in work. They're doing it where they live. And because there's no relationship between myself and the gang stalker, the demon-possessed gang stalker who is focused on me. And that knowledge and that malice and that mindset, that psychotic focus on me is proven through the environment that defies nature and the behavioral pattern, the character of the activity that's being created. The impossible light is still planted on the east living room wall while it is a rainy, cloudy day outside. This is impossible light activity speaking to what is the necessary presence, which is unlawful, where surveillance is underway, the ongoing unlawful activity, audible activity, which is also in its character abnormally loud. I am not only inside of the apartment where they are interfering with quiet enjoyment. The landscaping purposes are not that which is lawfully engaging in this, because AVANATH Capital Management is gang stalking. So even while they are quietly digging in the dirt, it is creating activity. They're going to prison for this. And these are the repercussions of engaging in gang stalking with the state. They don't even have a lawful protected right to be on the grounds. They not even across the street at 7-Eleven. This is how far the entity that is gang stalking is going to be prosecuted, because it's how the government is staying around you in order to stalk you and keep you under surveillance. They have to be around you. The government is doing it through the very population themselves, who conspicuously stalk you by employment wherever it is that you are, employment wherever it is near around you in relevant position, in other words, where you are, by presence that is coming and making deliveries, that is coming and visiting their grandma or their auntie or their siblings or whoever. They literally have those that are just trespassing on the property, they're gang stalking, and those that are residing at the venue, gang stalking with that population, doing so by aerial surveillance as well. The entity is doing this and more while you're looking at on the video impossible light activity that is concentrated on a cloudy day. It has nothing to do with sunlight. There's no lights on. It's not from the television. It's not piercing through a cloudy day is not causing sunlight or cloudy gray colored sunlight to come through closed blind slats and window coverings in a concentrated bar of light that's going from the floor to the ceiling and then streaming diagonally across the ceiling above the top of the front door. And there's also a line that is on the ground from so it's surrounding the front door on the floor to the wall, up the wall, and then from the wall across the ceiling over the door. This is framing the front entrance. That's not sunlight. That's not naturally occurring. It is speaking to what is malice of everything else that's happening as well. The specific environment is providing you context and recognizing conspicuous stalking. Conspicuous stalking are people and the entity that's begging for federal prison. And no sane person would be doing this. You're not dealing with sane people. You're dealing with the demon possessed, who are also aware of the fact that their malicious system of targeting is being systematically itemized and provided for a tutorial for the feds and the rest of the world to recognize and understand, and that they're going to be federally prosecuted. And I'm also going to embarrass them while I do so. The entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct while they are engaged in federal stalking on the venue of the internet. They are engaged in surveillance online, in addition to stalking in the path and creating audible activity and light activity, because just like the engineered light inside of Tracy Banks' apartment that you could see on the ceiling on the wall, they're not just hammering on a cloudy day. They're creating light activity while they're in gray colored engineered light. It is the same exact specific environment. They are doing so in plain sight with the intent to harass me, and they are foolishly harassing their federal prosecutor. I'm prosecuting these Neanderthals. Every last one, those 3 Latino males, there's a 4th one that was dragging a wagon on the sidewalk nearest the mailboxes. He's crossing path while I walk across the property. He's crossing path with the demons that are maintaining a light activity while they're pacing on G Street and on Vine in traffic. That's what that is. They're also gang stalking by virtue of going to 7-Eleven, pacing in and out of that parking lot. The entity that is and the federal government that's witnessing me prosecute the entity are aware of everything that's happening around me. It's the ongoing maintenance of light activity while they are focused on what I'm doing. And at that moment, I'm moving from the apartment, inside of the apartment, to the sidewalk, walking through the parking lot. You will see the demon and his license plate. Let me read his license plate. He's stalking in the path. This is what the demons that reside at the unit engage in as an entire community. And this is why the demons in units 33 through 64 are going to prison, because this is what they're engaging in by maintaining physical presence close to me on a 24-hour basis in the units 33 through 64. This demon that is using his vehicle, he's using his Hyundai. Okay, this is speaking to somebody that is clearly not anyone that's going to be able to afford to pay for any sort of damages. Somebody that does not have any deep pockets. You're driving an Elantra. You're living at a low-income housing community for senior citizens where you're gang stalking while unemployed, and you're relying on the government to pay your rent while you're engaged in domestic terrorism. This African-American male operating vehicle license 9RX Frank 302 is gang stalking and using that vehicle as a means of light activity, meeting me in the path while I'm walking through the parking lot in what is engineered light that is nothing but a gray color. And you know that the fake sun is right over the top of my head while it's covered up with clouds. And this is the malicious entity that is demon-possessed gang stalking. He was playing Kirk Franklin. Okay, I'm not going to make any comments about Kirk Franklin because he could have been playing DMX. You're talking about what is, and what am I getting to? It doesn't matter what genre. I just want to let you know this demon-possessed gang stalker, Satan himself, will use gospel music as a means of audible activity. This is, again, laughable. It's as laughable as the fake sun sitting over the top of the apartment from the beginning until the end of the day for over 9 hours. And you're supposed to be ignorant about that in the same way you're supposed to think that this is I guess, a Christian, a believer, somebody that's listening to gospel music. The entity that knows that it's being documented engages in this sort of conduct. You can even pay attention to the content of whatever they're listening to, because Satan is always communicating a message. All right. And this is somebody that's using gospel music while they're engaging in demonic activity. While they're engaging in criminal and unlawful activity. It's activity creation in the path while that demon, that coward, kept his back to me while he knows that he's being documented, not because he has to look at me, because this is a demon-possessed person. They also know what's going on between my legs in the bathroom while they're not inside of the apartment. This is the sex offense that the entity is going to be prosecuted for. And all of those that are residing in all 144 units of Woodside Senior Apartments are being prosecuted under the Violence Against Women Act, stalking in an unprecedented manner in violation of existing law. And they're also engaged in they're also engaged in the unprecedented act of what is domestic terrorism, gang stalking, as an apartment complex with the local government, the City of Ontario. It's a function of the City of Ontario to maintain criminal surveillance amongst the population. That is demon-possessed in the City of Ontario, and its government has demonstrated that, proven that, and has already provided the legal framework to prosecute the entire apartment complex and the third-party gang stalker, AVANATH Capital Management. So the demons are going to federal prison. You will see them in the video. You will see them in the images, the screenshots that I capture. The activity creation that you see RGS engaging in, this is documentation of impunity of that third-party company who is going to be civilly prosecuted for damages, engaging in psychological torture, the sexual violence inherent to stalking a woman inside of an apartment, and doing so while that woman is enforcing her rights, meaning communicating clearly while you're monitoring on her device and keeping her under surveillance with the state that she doesn't want a bunch of dudes stalking her while she's in the apartment, while she's physically indisposed, engaging in private activity. But RGS, the company, and RGS's sex offenders that it hires are engaging in what is impunity and insisting on sexually violating me and stalking me and engaging in what is terrorizing me by gang stalking me. Okay, they're doing so with regard to knowledge that I am documenting them, and the amplified sound of hammering is that which is piercing through while I'm wearing headphones on the end. First of all, I'm on the inside of an apartment. Okay, so the hammering's not going to sound like you're inside of the apartment. Second of all, I am wearing headphones listening to content that is loud enough to drown out everything, including the television. So I am aware of what they are doing on the outside of an apartment at a distance away from the apartment. This is called amplification. These, again, are the mentally ill. Whose prize? What is the prize? I'm prosecuting you. I'm going to embarrass you. I'm going to put your name, your images, your company. Your company is going to pay me, and you're all going to prison. And everybody else that's already going to prison and going to be facing homelessness after I am done prosecuting them. That's the prize that the demon-possessed one, who are more obsessed with me than focusing on how they're going to deal with this federal case. This monster of liability in federal court. That's not what they're consumed with. They're consumed with me. Focusing on the fact that I identified RGS when you were looking at the fake sun after 5 p.m. and after 3 p.m. yesterday afternoon. The demon-possessed, who are psychopaths, who are not the most intellectual, they're not the most intelligent at all. And they lack the fruit of self-control. They're focused on what I said yesterday while they're monitoring on my communication devices, monitoring evidence regarding their federal case that is an unlawful interference with the federal investigation, an ongoing federal case for which they're going to federal prison for. And they're focused on a criminal act of retaliation and intimidation. You're not intimidating the federal prosecutor. You're providing more evidence for a federal prosecutor who is sick of documenting you to put you in prison for even longer. No sane person, no intelligent person would engage in that. So the demon-possessed are focused on one angle, and they have been surrounded and overwhelmed with evidence, speaking to their identity, which is relevant to the malice and the necessary justice that requires prison. Okay, these Latino males are gang stalking with amplified audible activity that is occurring with simultaneity to my observation of the sound of the hammering. That is the sound that is occurring amongst impossible light activity. They're in impossible light activity. You're supposed to be thinking there's no sunlight because the fake sun is covered up. Not only do you know that the fake sun is still there right over the top of my head, you also know that it is merely covered up by clouds and this is not the natural environment. You also know that they are stalking, creating activity at any volume. It is unlawful activity creation for purposes of criminal monitoring inside of an apartment at that. Okay, and that's because of the engineered light that's appearing on the ceiling. They're hammering amongst what is light that is not normal light. This is the specific environment where a bunch of sex offenders are more obsessed with me, my genitalia, and my enforcing my rights against sex offenders like RGS employees who are gang stalking me on yet another day and not engaging in lawful landscaping at a facilitating venue, not a private residence where you can make contracts with employees who are not engaged in domestic terrorism. They are actually engaged and focused on landscaping. Okay, but nobody in California is engaging in that. California is a gang stalker and is gang stalking reliant on the demon-possessed population. And RGS is going to be civilly and criminally prosecuted also for stalking commercially, engaged in violation of the Violence Against Women Act. And everybody at Woodside Senior Apartments is going to be removed from their apartment homes by it. Okay, it is currently, when you're looking at the video of me walking through the parking lot, I'm going to recite the license plates, but I want to be clear, and you can also see the activity that they're engaging in engineered light. Not only is it piercing through headphone content, this is the extent to which the demons want to disrupt sleep. It's a criminal interference with quiet enjoyment while they're gang stalking. It's also that which is uncharacteristic while you're outside hammering in the dirt, and it's so loud that it's piercing through the headphones, the content that I'm listening to, and then they resume it at the moment that I recall I'm in a conscious, unconscious state. So I'm sleeping, I fall back, I wake up, they wake me up with the hammering, and then I fall back asleep, and then I wake back up again, and I recall in my mind, which demons are monitoring. So they're obsessively monitoring what it is that I'm thinking about with the intent to psychologically torture. This is the invisible aspect to gang stalking. So this is the malice whereby RGS, all you have is Satan hiding under a logo, Satan hiding amongst an activity, landscaping. And what you're looking at, you are being educated about the spiritual. They're engaging in what is landscaping, which is nothing other than the physical engagement of what is audible activity creation, because that's what they're engaging in, elements of monitoring. This is where you're learning about the spiritual aspect of what they're doing. They're monitoring someone, and you're looking at them monitoring someone. And they're monitoring me pursuant to what is the physical activity of hammering and what is engineered light, demonic, with knowledge of what it is that I'm doing, what I'm observing, what I'm experiencing inside of the apartment. Not only that, as I go to the patio glass door and I open the blinds, pay attention to what you're listening to. At that moment, that's when they start the high-powered screwdriver operation. That's when they start at the moment that I open the patio glass blinds. They're stalking with activity. These are psychopaths that they are salivating and worshiping my genitalia as well. These are sex offenders that then go home to their baby mamas, perhaps their boyfriends, their girlfriends, whatever it is that they go home to. They're around minor children and they're engaged in sexual violence all day long. This is speaking to, again, the perverted and depraved and degenerate society that is the state of California that practices federal group stalking and monitoring, which is inherently sexually violent and perverted. And they go home and maintaining an appearance in society as normalcy, okay, as being functional, healthy people, and they're not. They're sex offenders by practice. Like, they routinely engage in sexual violence. And they hide it, but it's not hidden anymore. But this is supposed to appear on the surface as landscaping. All right. This is the P.O.C, however. So I want to be clear, not only based on, I want to be clear, the entity that is hammering in the dirt on the opposite side in front of apartment number 41, where you already know that the fake sun is over me and over them on another day, such as March 10th, 2025, where you see the fake sun blaring in all of its brilliance, not over Alvarado Gardens, which would be the natural environment if they were not engaged in the demonic system of targeting someone and conspicuously stalking them in ways that the ordinary targeted individual could not prove and establish. No, they're foolishly targeting and thinking that they're retaliating against a federal prosecutor who was pointing out their mental illness while prosecuting them for domestic terrorism. That's the one that they're harassing by waking me up in my sleep. And that's the prize that they get. You're going to prison for even longer. And we hope that you're not natural born citizens. The feds know who you are, because if you're not, you're also out of this country and you're not welcome here. No one is apologizing for kicking out terrorists from this country. Sex offenders, that's one less offender. We celebrate the removal of pedophiles and predators and stalkers, criminals from this country. So I want to be clear, the entity is gang stalking and you are referencing, I took screenshots of it because you already know what they're doing. The record is already complete. They're doing so under what is engineered light that's still present, it's just a different color. Okay? And the fake sun is still there. It's covered up under the clouds. None of this is the natural environment. And the sun would be over Alvarado Gardens if it worked. But that's not what was documented on March 10th when they're engaging in the same unlawfulness right in the face of the federal prosecutor. Okay? Satan is gang stalking using landscaping tools under a fake sun that still remained over 11:38 in the morning, as I documented on March 10, 2025. And these psychopaths, these demons that are worshiping my genitalia, pacing around using landscaping equipment, stalking me, and doing so, not focusing on landscaping, not having any constitutionally protected right to be there, providing an admission in federal court to criminal presence, and profiting off of domestic terrorism on behalf of the government, facilitating a malicious way of facilitating domestic terrorism in the state of California by engaging in what is landscaping services at the facilitating venue. You will see the fake sun at 11:38 in the morning, and it remained there while they were gang stalking. After 5 p.m., that fake sun is still present over me. So let's count the hours together. On March 10, 2025 at 11:38, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 6 hours later where the fake sun, and you know this because I captured the same fake sun setting in alignment to me after 5 p.m. inside of this apartment, where you will see actually the same light activity on the same living room wall in the presence of the fake sun and in the absence. And it's not really absent, it's covered up by clouds because the demon possessed and Satan himself knows that I've pointed out what is the stage that all these demons are standing on when they're stalking as a means of a whole business and a operation in the state of California. That same engineer light is on the same living room wall at the end of the day, where the fake sun is not covered up by clouds yesterday. It's blaring, and the entity provided this evidence to me. Nobody is forgetting the record. It is only Satan that is short-sighted, and Satan is relying on you being an absolute outright ignoramus. Everything about what Satan does is relying on you agreeing with what is pure idiocy. It's the same thing with sin, by the way. You have to agree to walk in sin. You have to agree to be disgusting. You have to agree to be perverted. You have to agree to be demented in order to comply with these things. And logic is dictating. I'm pointing out how illogical. I'm pointing out the what is the flagrant flaws, okay, in common sense. It's plain stupidity. What Satan is doing doesn't even make sense. That's the embarrassing aspect of being prosecuted by me for federal group stalking and monitoring. In federal court, it is an absolute, complete, and comprehensive prosecution for domestic terrorism and sexual violence, which I'm also going to drain your pockets for. Little mom and pop companies like RGS are not going to survive, and their employees are going to prison. And hopefully we can deport them if they're not natural born citizens. If they've been given papers, if they've been given naturalization, if they've been, in other words, given some privilege to be in this country, it does not include engaging in and facilitating federal group stalking and monitoring, and they're out of this country. They continuously demonstrate, by the way, to the federal government as well, why that should be the case. But I don't even need you to agree by engaging in ongoing impunity that I'm documenting, because my evidence, just like any other case that you prosecute, is proven beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't need your ridiculous engagement in a repeated pattern of conduct proving what it is I've already established unilaterally, the fact that you belong, the fact that you deserve deportation. But that's what they do. That's what they do. Okay? And they being the entity. And I want to be clear, those are natural born citizens. They are also speaking to the fact that those that are not natural born citizens, they're the same entity. That's the people of the state. Their interests will be competing with each other in federal court. So those that are natural born citizens, those homegrown terrorists that are gang stalking with those that have been given a privilege to be here, they're helping their hombres, their hermanos and hermanas being deported out of this country. And those are not just of Latino descent. You have Africans that are gang stalking in the state of California that are subject to deportation. You have those that are Haitian, those that are Jamaican, those that are Belizean, those are of whatever nationality. There is no discrimination with regard to justice. And what you'll also learn about the kingdom of darkness, there's no discrimination with regard to targeting a child of God. I have witnessed the entity, they put aside all their differences to target me. They put aside all their differences. But this is something that you're ignorant about when you are focusing merely on the physical. But even focusing on the physical, you can see the engineer light. I'm pointing out the character of the audible activity, which is uncharacteristically loud and not going to be that disruptive. I am sleeping inside of an apartment. I'm not sleeping outside on the dirt next to them. I'm inside of the apartment where they're hammering in the dirt on the opposite side of in front of apartment 41 is not going to create impact under my feet while I'm sitting on the inside of the apartment. That's called sensational activity, and that's also what they're doing while they're monitoring me, monitoring my evidence as I'm capturing screenshots after capturing that video from 11:53 to 12:03 p.m. And the same demons whose images and close-up images you see, they are monitoring me and harassing and threatening me while then the floor is being impacted at the same time that they're hammering. That's called sensational activity. That's how demons who are invisibly, in a manner that you cannot see, targeting another person, psychologically targeting them. It does not get any more foolish than doing this to a federal prosecutor like I am prosecuting RGS and all of its employees. But nonetheless, this is the pattern of conduct. This is what they engaged in. I've already established my credibility. I don't have to get up and add any more defendants to the pool. This is what they did, and I'm going to point out what they did. I've already proven that this is what the entity does on a routine, consistent basis. The demons are then stalking and monitoring me, psychologically harming and criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment while their same hammering that you're looking at them conspicuously engaging in, admitting to being stalkers while you're hammering in front of me, while you're hammering at the facilitating venue, you're conspicuously stalking. That's a very serious federal offense relevant to domestic terrorism in this country. But nonetheless, while they're doing so, it is also impossible that it's creating any impact on the inside of this apartment underneath my feet while I'm sitting on the couch, where they know exactly where I am, what I'm doing on my device, and they also knew when I was sleeping and the demonic was underway so that they could interfere with waking up a federal prosecutor who walks out and embarrasses them again. I'm dragging their company name, and I'm dragging every single last one of them. They're going to prison, all four of them. There's four of them, and I documented the license plate. So let me record. I read it on the video. I want to make sure that I document the license plate again. And I'm also going to recite the license plates of those who are gang stalking with regard to license plates in the parking lot. I documented many of them, and I'm gonna go ahead and include that in this podcast as well, because they're all gang stalking as a community. It's not limited to the license plates that are in the parking lot right now. Every single last person residing at Woodside Senior Apartments is being prosecuted. They're being prosecuted for stalking under the Violence Against Women Act. They're being prosecuted for domestic terrorism, gang stalking with the state. No one is going to remain in their apartment homes. None of them will be eligible for housing benefits ever again. They're going to be prosecuted as domestic terrorists, and those in units 33 through 64 and those working for AVANATH Capital Management like Linda Reyes, they're going to prison and mental asylums. They're going to prison. And this is why the population such as RGS, what they represent, they're coming onto the grounds, aiding in the elements of monitoring, which is also harassing, and it's also terrorizing, and it's also psychologically harmful. And those that are in the buildings physically around me, they're manning the path around me that is always surrounding me. This is, again, akin to being stuck in a bubble with steel walls, not a bubble that you could just walk outside of. The entity is stalking you, always surrounding you. This is happening in the context of an apartment building, and they are obsessively maintaining presence in the path, and that obsession is proven through the specific environment. They're not just living and just minding their business. Their obsession and their criminal activity and their mental illness is proven through the specific environment, literally, and their behavioral pattern. The entity is doing so while I am also documenting it. So RGS's license plate 41973W3. This is the license plate that is parked in relevant position. They are gang stalking me with the city of Ontario, the population that's stalking in the path using their vehicles. Traffic is a means of, you need to understand, it's a whole obsessive endeavor. They are maintaining activity creation around me inside of this apartment at Woodside Senior Apartments through the demons that are gang stalking in the sky space and traffic. That is everybody that's maintaining presence. They are monitoring me as a citywide effort. They're not just going to 7-Eleven and going to buy some Twinkies. They're not just arriving to work at 7-Eleven. They're not just driving in and out of their driveway at 714 North Vine Avenue, 717 North Vine Avenue. They're not, and every other address. They're not just driving by and en route to a destination when they're stopping at the stop sign at G Street and Vine. They are gang stalking me. This is a demon-possessed population, and you are aware of that. You're privy to it because a whole fake sun and engineer light, the scientific impossibility of this environment is speaking to deliberate, intentional, and continuous activity that is spiritual, meaning there's an invisible motive, an invisible agenda. This is spiritual. I'm letting you know in the physical, which you are able to see and witness with your own eyes and ears, what is the criminal activity. It's becoming criminal because it's on behalf of a government that is maliciously keeping one under surveillance. So everything has a criminal context. Everything also is speaking to what is also deliberately underway in this environment that defies nature. Every single last person that's gang stalking via traffic and in all the houses around me, shopping at the plaza on the east side of Woodside Senior Apartments, parking on G, everything is happening pursuant to monitoring me and maintaining elements of monitoring. It goes well beyond Woodside Senior Apartments. It just so happens that I'm here, and since all these demons at Woodside want to gang stalk, all these elderly people are all losing their apartment homes in doing so. If that's a fair exchange, if that's, you think that it's worth at this advanced age with this economy and the direction that we're going in this country, that homelessness and a criminal record for being a sex offender and a terrorist, if you think that this is the time at your age to be caught in those sort of circumstances, may it be well with you. But they are going to be prosecuted. They're all losing their housing under the Violence Against Women Act, and they're all losing their housing because they will be convicted terrorists and sex offenders who will have quite an issue getting past another background check. Apartment complexes tend to not welcome sex offenders. That's of their own discretion, but it typically is not going to be the case because, like myself, you don't want to be surrounded by sex offenders, people that have that sort of record. Not to say that you can't change, but it's kind of hard once you've gone that route, and people with children, people with privacy concerns, people with safety concerns, they tend to not want to be around you, and they have a constitutional right. It's not against public policy to exclude those people, just like the people of the state that are gang stalking at Woodside Senior Apartments. This is what they've set up for themselves. While they think that it's prudent to wake up a federal prosecutor who's going to get up and add more evidence to why you're not getting out of federal prison. You're not getting past this criminal record that's going on your record. I'm gonna make sure you walk away with that. And that's if you get out of federal prison. If you're not going to federal prison, the entity that is gang stalking is going to walk away, and they will never forget me since they wanted to gang stalk me, because that criminal record is going to remain with you till whatever day you expire. They're already over 55. Still have plenty of energy, though, to engage in terrorism and this level of malice and the ongoing criminal acts of retaliation. Yes, while the demon-possessed are engaging in landscaping in front of my apartment, the apartment that I'm inside of, and it's creating impact in the living room floor under my feet, the demons that are living in units 1 through 144 are exhibiting criminal acts with the intent to retaliate and intimidate. All these demons are acting together. Their competing interests in federal court are going to clash. Those that are immigrants that are gang stalking, those that are property owners like AVANATH who are gang stalking, those who are engaging in some sort of business whereby you're gang stalking by making a delivery to the demon. And they know this. They're listening to me tell them about the rules. They're monitoring the federal prosecutors, so they're not ignorant about the rules, and the same malice with which they thought that it was prudent to target the federal prosecutor and to expose them, they're going to be subject to those rules and more for seeking to obstruct justice, for thinking that you're going to defy federal law. When you've been given the rules, since you don't respect rules, you're going to be subject to them and more. It's not changing. It gets worse for the entity. This is on behalf of the ordinary targeted individual who doesn't have this voice, who cannot defend themselves, who can't even prove that strangers are targeting them, who has heard of sensational activity in the living room floor. Impossible light activity, engineer light on the living room wall and on the ceiling. A fake sun that's sitting over an apartment complex all day long over you. Stalking by the government using planes and helicopters. Spectacular methods, very expensive in doing so and targeting someone. Who has heard of that and who can prove it? That's why you're going to prison. That's why you're going to prison. That's why the damages are designed to devastate your gang stalking company and devastate your brand and put your employees in prison. That's why. The malice. The entity is doing so with the pattern of conduct is underway. So let me recite these license plates of the demons that are gang stalking under what is the same exact specific environment, the same exact circumstances, maliciously doing so, thinking that you're going to target me, harass and terrorize me, and engage in criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, in other words, because let's be clear, everything that I document about the demons, these woefully unprepared and inept demons always are engaging in the same thing. So this was a failed attempt at retaliation, and all I'm doing is see the faces of these sex offenders. They're all going to prison. That's literally what they want. I'm getting close-up images of them because I want you to recognize the sex offenders, the predators that they are, while they're acting with the entity that's residing at the venue, because they're all going to be prosecuted together. That's the prize that they win when they sought to engage in harassing me by conspicuous stalking, which is entirely unlawful, and no intelligent defendant that anticipates being in federal court, because that's where you're going to be, and you have no successful posture in that venue, a federal court. And I don't mean venues such as another state facilitating venue. There's no witchcraft. There's no sex ritual. There's no voodoo that's going to work on the federal court this time. It's not going to work on the federal judges. The state has no pull over the federal courts. This will be actual justice executed, and you're actually going to prison. The entity is engaging in a pattern of conduct and is doing so while I am documenting them. They know exactly what I document, and they engage in the same idiotic pattern of conduct. But this is speaking to what is in conformity and consistent with my evidence. The demons are very predictable. The demons are engaged in an ongoing cycle, and they are very unintelligent. There's no other way for them to engage in this pattern of monitoring, and that's why I'm able to surround them with evidence that they cannot escape. They're always doing it in the same exact manner. That doesn't mean you're marrying yourself to one image. They're engaging in the same exact elements of monitoring. You are always looking at how are the elements present, because the elements are always present. They are stuck in that, and I'm going to prosecute them with that. All right, the entity is engaging in this P.O.C, and I want you to see, I'm going to document the license plates now where RGS is gang stalking, creating amplified audible activity, sensational activity inside of the apartment, conspicuously stalking. That is a threat to my life, my safety, my well-being. They are also openly engaging in sexual violence against a woman whom they are aware of is enforcing her rights. against a bunch of dudes, monitoring her genitalia, monitoring her when she's physically indisposed in the bathroom, and they are insisting on stalking and sexually violating her and doing so in her face. This is the threat. This is the impunity and the high level of malice of sex offenders who are gang stalking and doing so through commercial means. High level of malice where the people of the state are gang stalking through companies. Okay? These are a bunch of sex offenders who are engaging in that and are communicating that both actually and reasonably. Okay? When you're understanding how the specific environment, how the entity is engaging in the P.O.C. on an ongoing basis. So I want to recite license plates now. All right, it is currently, by the way, it's 1:03 p.m. and RGS is gang stalking for purposes of monitoring evidence against itself and against the entity. That remains the case right now. Just want to document that. This is not the engagement in any lawful landscaping. This is the state, which is acting via RGS, who is engaged in impunity. Impunity upon domestic terrorism, and that impunity is going to be used against them when they're sentenced to federal prison and subject to, if it applies under the facts of prosecuting RGS, the gang stalker, and its employees, any gang stalking immigrants, okay, where deportation will apply. License 9RXF302. And this is RGS's license plate again, license 41973W3. License 7X82385. Gang stalking and is using parking space number 12 at Woodside Senior Apartments. License plate 34809 handicap. That's a blue Civic. Gang stalking using parking space number 34. Using gang stalking using parking space number 36, license 7ZER072. And gang stalking using parking space number 38, license NS5801. I believe that's a Chevy, and it is a handicap plate. And in case I didn't specify, parking space number 34 for this gang stalker with license plate 34809. That's a handicap plate as well for a Honda Civic. All right, license plate number 9EXJ932. I've already documented this third party is going to federal prison. License 6YOZ533. Gang stalking with the Ontario Police on multiple occasions, and also the ongoing unlawful residence at the venue is adding to worthiness of federal prison. But not only that. Even if this third party does not reside in units 33 through 64, which they may not, they're going to prison because they were gang stalking me, molesting me with impossible light in concert with the Ontario Police Department. They are on video also engaged in criminal summoning with the Ontario Police Department. If I recall correctly, this was documented on October 9th, 2024. Excuse me, 2024 at in the video that is at 10:19 in the morning under the fake sun. License 077XV, that's a handicap plate, engaged in what is federal group stalking and monitoring with the amplified audible activity of the Ontario Police Department. That is gang stalking with the Ontario Police Department, which equals federal prison. So this third party is on video molesting me with impossible light in the parking lot with the previous third party while they're driving out of the parking lot, while the fake sun that you already know is present where RGS is now, and it stays here, which is what I documented after 4 p.m. and this third party and the previous third party gang stalking in this parking lot, while that, which is also not sunlight, is moving all across the parking structures, across my person and across the asphalt, while the demons are stalking. All right, they're stalking, which you know that they're stalking because of the impossible light activity, the behavior that they exhibit that defies nature, i.e. demons. All right, they're engaging in what is terrorizing and psychologically torturing behavior as well. And they were doing it with the Ontario Police, and that's the formula for federal prison. No one has forgotten. 077XV, handicap, they're going to prison. This is an African-American male that I documented. License 47657 Mary 2 is a third-party gang stalking in parking spot number 25. All right, and RGS is gang stalking with all of the entity at the venue. License 9CZCO53. Of course, that's AVANATH Capital Management Employees Gang Stalking. That's the black BMW that is parked. That's where the employees reside. They are gang stalking by residents. They're going to mental asylums. They're gang stalking with those that are present on the grounds, engaging in that P.O.C. What you are listening to in the background is audible activity. Amongst the engineer light that's on the ceiling, they do so under the fake sun, as you are aware of, at 11:38 on March 10th, 2025. RGS is doing the same thing at what is 1 o'clock in the afternoon, when you'll see impossible light activity sweeping across the cabinets inside of Tracy Banks's kitchen, where they are gang stalking after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, showing the same level of impunity, by the way, while I am documenting them as well. These are the demons who are going to federal prison. And this is, again, the admission to criminal presence in the path on behalf of the state. Their mental illness is exhibited while they're gang stalking the one who is prosecuting them. This is speaking to the mental illness of the demon possessed, who are a national security threat. This is speaking to the damages that RGS shall compensate for, and all of its gang stalking employees are going to prison that are present at Woodside Senior Apartments. They are gang stalking with all of the demons that are residing at the at the venue as well, while they're creating activity under what is engineered light that they're creating noise under, monitoring a woman inside of an apartment, and are engaging what is louder activity as I document them, and I am providing what is a damning a list of third parties who are being prosecuted with them. While you hear that, all those third parties, those license plates, are gang stalking with the same level of impunity. They're all going to be prosecuted with regard to federal prison. It remains the same while demons are hostile and the audible activity gets louder. The license plates of the third parties gang stalking with the Ontario police. I want to be clear. RGS is documenting gang stalking on video with Ontario police, but they're gang stalking with Ontario police right now. That's why they're going to prison. But I want to be clear, the audible activity, it's all based on me. They're not actually focused on landscaping, and they're doing so, which you know that, because it's in a whole supernatural environment. And these sex offenders of a Latino descent, this is nothing other than meat suits that are brown colored that are going to federal prison. This has nothing to do with race. But how you will apply what are laws that exist on the books, those that have been given the privilege to be in this country, it does not include for purposes of engaging in what is misusing your constitutional right, privilege, and rights to have businesses that are not going to, and not providing the purpose for a government like the city of Ontario, like the state of California, to engage in surveillance and furtherance of committing murder. That's not what you have a constitutional right to. And the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct while they are monitoring and listening to my very damning indictment about what the entity will be subject to. And it includes federal prison for the license plates that I just read. And they are hostile to that. There is context regarding what the entity is doing as they create activity, not actually focus on landscaping. Okay, so I just want to be clear, the video evidence where RGS is also referenced gang stalking under the fake sun that's still present over this venue. I want to go ahead and recite that to you. Let me give you a second. 1 second. This is all under the engineer light. So they're going to prison. Alrighty, and you are aware of video documentation of RGS gang stalking just like they are now with impunity. This impunity is what the federal judge, the federal court is going to pay very close attention to. That's activity creation of a woman whom they are sexually violating while gang stalking her inside of a private space. That's the significance of gang stalking at an apartment complex. And these sex offenders are doing so with knowledge. This is simultaneous monitoring of the evidence at the same time. These sex offenders are indeed going to federal prison. They are doing so with the intent to obstruct justice. This is harass and terrorize the one who is exposing them, prosecuting, blowing the whistle, etc. And this is while they are doing so for the unlawful purpose of committing murder, not engaging in landscaping. All right, and their actual focus is proven through the specific environment where they are gang stalking in conformity to a pattern of conduct. That's what's relevant about the amplified audible activity that you hear outside of the apartment at what is currently 1:12 p.m. You will recall what is documented on February 28, 2025 at 1:33 p.m. where RGS is gang stalking in the same exact manner that it is now under an enduring fake sun. And on the inside of this apartment, engineered light, just like that which is plastered on the east living room wall and on the ceiling and on the floor, it's occurring while the fake sun is plastered on the outside of above the top of my head, shining because it's still outside over my head right now where RGS and AVANATH and the entity is gang stalking me inside of this apartment while listening to me indict them through this podcast documentation. They are engaging in what is gang stalking on February 28th under the fake sun at 1:33 p.m. on video, where you will see engineer light appearing in the depths of this apartment, just like engineer light over on the ceiling and on the east living room wall on a cloudy day. Equally impossible light activity that's concentrated, never the product of sunlight. It's not the product of a cloudy day either. That's causing light to pierce through the peephole onto the palm of my hand, like you see today, where AVANATH and RGS are gang stalking through their demon-possessed employees who are going to prison, and doing so based on the intent to obstruct justice while they're monitoring evidence in violation of the federal stalking statute and stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act, 34 U.S.C. section 12291. And they continuously do so, and more of it, psychologically harmful in doing so while they are being exposed, which they have real-time knowledge of because they're gang stalking and engaging in surveillance on the internet and on my devices. While you're listening to that, also listen to this. On February 28, 2025 at 1:33 p.m., the same gang stalking company RGS, whose employees are going to federal prison, they were monitoring me. And you are aware of that because of the environment inside of the apartment, where they're stalking in the path outside of the apartment and engaging in what is federal stalking using communication devices in relevant position to me outside of the apartment, where also the fake sun is present over my head at this time at 1:33 p.m. Daylight savings time is absolutely irrelevant in the specific environment. But nonetheless, during daylight savings time, this will be 2:33 p.m. But you also know that it's irrelevant because the fake sun is still here after 5 p.m., which is what you saw yesterday in images and on video. Okay, at 1:33 p.m., which is relevant only for purposes of documentation and precision, so that you know exactly what I'm talking about, chronologically speaking. But it's not relevant with regard to the identification of a natural environment. And give or take away an hour, RGS is going to prison. They are in the specific environment gang stalking me, and their focus is, well, how you know, their focus is on monitoring me with impunity while that audible activity is heard, while I'm capturing documentation about them and their co-defendants who are going to federal prison for gang stalking with the Ontario police. But that's what the entity is hostile toward, and their mental illness is putting them in mental asylums and in federal prison. And if RGS continues exhibiting this level of impunity and malice with regard to an illusion of engaging in some sort of retaliation against the federal prosecutor, who is in your federal case, which is not going to disappear, they're going to mental asylums. This is how it's an automatic federal prison by default, based on the relevant facts and circumstances. They graduate to mental asylums. It's escalated to a mental asylum based on the level of criminal activity that is documented while they're gang stalking. Okay, so this is what the entity is doing amongst the engineer light. This engineer light and this sensational activity while they're hammering on the ground in front of apartment 41, this is the material for being placed in mental asylums, what RGS employees are exhibiting. And I want to be clear, the entity is doing so while monitoring the evidence. Stalking me with impossible light while you're in relevant position on February 28th, you will see the video of the engineer light appearing on Tracy Banks's cabinets above the stove. It's appearing on the cabinets, and then as I capture video at 1:33 p.m., the engineer light that I can reach my hand up toward the ceiling, and you'll see the engineer light shooting through like a laser. It has nothing to do with sunlight. In the same way, on a cloudy day, this engineer light that's plastered on the ceiling and on the east living room wall, what RGS is still present on under both circumstances, and the same exact elements of monitoring remain underway by this malicious and gang stalking third-party company whose employees are begging for a mental asylum to be incarcerated for a prolonged period, as opposed to federal prison, while they're monitoring evidence. I just want to be clear. Gang stalking with ongoing sensational activity, gang stalking amongst impossible light activity, it's speaking toward their mental illness, that they're going to find themselves in mental asylums. Okay, these 4 Latino males are the ones that I am documenting. The 3 that are in unit 4 in front of unit 41, and the one that is hauling a wagon as a means of crossing path, pacing in front of me while they're stalking me as I walk through the parking lot. Understand how the specific environment is pointing directly to the demented mind state of the demon possessed who are targeting. All right. But I just want to point that video out because you will see the ongoing body of evidence and who's outside on February 28, 2025 under a fake sun that is remaining over me at Woodside Senior Apartments. As you're also mindful during daylight savings time at 11:38 a.m., the fake sun is also over me at Woodside Senior Apartments, while there's a whole body of evidence speaking to what is in common amongst Jose and Sons Landscaping and Smart Janitorial and Universal Waste Systems, much like what RGS Landscaping represents: criminal presence, systematic engagement in federal group stalking, monitoring in concert with the state. Because that's how I have the fake sun rising and setting over me in Los Angeles on the same days at the same times. That is for the duration of the day, rising and setting, much like the pattern of conduct that RGS is engaging in through a commercial means, speaking to prosecuting that company and prosecuting its employees, and where they're systematically engaging in it, and with the impunity that I just documented on this podcast, so that a federal judge doesn't have to question, which they don't. I've already prosecuted them. The entity is providing evidence against itself, so there's no question as, oh, are they still there gang stalking? Did they perhaps leave the scene? Did they cease engaging in targeting for today? No, they did not, which the federal judge knows beyond a reasonable doubt because they just engaged in amplified audible activity in the specific environment while keeping me under surveillance on devices, knowing exactly what I'm saying and doing with regard to prosecuting them. Very foolish conduct. Okay, and this is the material putting such defendants in mental asylums. This is what they're creeping towards. And if they're not natural born citizens, absolutely you're going to be deporting this population out of the country. Okay, it is currently 1:18 p.m. And so this is directly relevant to the video captured at 1:33 p.m. You know that the fake sun is here. A cloudy day, a rainy day is not the natural environment. This is the specific environment where you have the fake sun rising and setting on one day. You have the framework for prosecuting federal group stalking and monitoring, no matter how Satan paints the stage, covering up the fake sun. But I want to be clear, it never lasts for long, because this is literally what the demons rely on while they are gang stalking as a whole society. So you're looking at what is, under all circumstances, even on that cloudy day, the maintenance of impossible light activity, the maintenance of the amplified audible activity, and what will always be criminal presence. While you are you are clearly shown as stalking by residents, that is the malice being flipped on its head, where you thought no one would be able to prosecute you or be able to prove. No one would even believe. That's malice. You're the first one going to prison. Gang stalking by residents, gang stalking by employment, gang stalking systematically and repeatedly like RGS employees. All right. It is currently 1:19 p.m. That amplified noise of the demons that are pacing, they're doing so pursuant to the demons whose license plate to play the tape back. The demons are indeed going to federal prison, gang stalking with Ontario police, like I stated. They are going to federal prison based on the rules that they continuously violate. And the entity is so well practiced in lawlessness and avoiding justice, obstructing justice. They are engaging in this conduct, which is now to their own demise. You are still the one who is going to prison, and you're going to prison for even longer while you engage in the ongoing criminal elements of monitoring against now what is the operation of federal law, which no state government is going to engage in that. And no demon-possessed gang stalker, no matter how many thousands and thousands and thousands of them are. It doesn't matter. You're going to prison. All right, and you're going to prison for even longer. And the same two license plates who were documented there on video, gang stalking, molesting with impossible light, they're still going to prison. They're going to prison. That's exactly where they're going when I prosecute them. And I'm prosecuting them now. They're being prosecuted. You're going to prison. I'm letting you know beforehand what's going to happen to you. You heard the license plates as I recited your license plate. You heard your co-defendant amplifying audible activity as I'm reciting your license plate. You're going to federal prison. Okay, it is currently 1:21 p.m. on March 14, 2025. This is the entity engaged in the criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, and the prize for the mentally unstable, demon-possessed population who was exposed. And they are also being prosecuted for domestic terrorism in this country, which they are going to be prosecuted for. They're being prosecuted in real time also. They are going to be subject to a federal prosecution in a federal tribunal, however. That's what is the future aspect regarding what is an ongoing prosecution. And their mental illness is more clearly on display while they are facing that, aware of it, and continuously exhibiting obsession with me. And that's not a compliment. That's a threat to your life. Their obsession is based on and an ongoing desire to commit murder. That's why you're gang stalking, and you create more audible activity for the federal court to listen to, understanding the substance and the purpose of it, while they also are aware of your knowledge regarding your engagement in that criminal activity on behalf of a corrupt government, state government. That's the demons that is gang stalking via RGS. RGS is nothing other than a means of malice. The same elements of murder. It's one entity. It's the people of the state. All right. It is currently 1:22 p.m. This is P.O.C.